This is how these guys look like. Each transformer looks a little different from others. Of course, if the part number is the same, then two transformers would look almost identical. A lot of companies are around in this country as well as in other countries to produce transformers. Depending on voltage levels, the size can be very small to very big. Okay. Two wires going in, two wires coming out. That is the theory. The good news is for mechanical engineers that there are no rotating parts in this gadget. So friction losses are not an issue. When after the midterm exam, we start talking about generators and motors, friction would also get into the game. However, there are other losses. We'll see all that in the PPT. This PPT actually is prepared by one of mechanical engineering faculty members in LNMIT. So he has given you the perspective from the mechanical engineer's point of view. Where the transformers are located in a power system, high voltage transmission lines are carrying, let's say, 33 kilovolt or even higher voltage. A substation will pick up using transmission lines that voltage, will bring it down to a relatively lower value. Then local transmission lines will carry the power to various customers. There will be several transformers, quite a few at the substation, even even at the poles near customers. There are transformers, not on all the poles, but near the poles there are transformers in virtually every locality to bring the voltage down to what is needed by the customers. Okay. Besides power systems, transformers are popular in several other applications as well. Most of the lab equipment you see has got transformers inside. Voltage up, making voltage high or low is a very common requirement. Transformers do not work on DC. They work only on AC signals. Okay. So let me move to the second slide. Static electromagnetic device. Static in the sense there are no moving parts. Converts AC from one voltage to another without change in frequency. Yes, frequency doesn't change. The symbolic diagram or the electrical schematic is shown on the right hand side. Two input wires, two output wires. In between, magnetically coupled coils. The coil on the left is known as primary coil. The coil on the right is known as secondary coil. Coils have to be electrically isolated. They cannot be allowed to short circuit each other. So there is insulation on the wires. When you apply AC voltage to the primary winding, it sets up an AC flux, AC magnetic flux in the core. That flux couples with the wires of the secondary and produces the required voltage. EMF means the voltage generated directly at the winding. Voltage means actual voltage coming out. There will be losses in between. Okay. So EMF is the ideal case where voltage and EMF essentially mean the same thing, but in practice, EMF will be different from voltage. We'll see that slowly. If nothing is connected to the transformer's secondary winding, obviously there will be no current flowing in the secondary. But primary winding may still see some current because there are losses in the magnetic material, which is called core, CORE. So to supply those losses, primary may still draw some small current. Your charger that you use for charging your smartphone or any other device, if you leave it connected to the supply and supply is on and you are not charging, even then that charger will get hot little bit because the primary of the transformer inside the charger is still drawing some current. It's a good idea to switch off the input power supply to the charger when you are not using it. Otherwise, you are wasting energy as well as you are reducing the lifespan of the charger. There is a transformer inside, it's a power supply that is there inside. Yeah, this is what I have told you already. Winding to which input is applied is called primary winding. Winding which is connected to the load is called secondary winding. Fair enough. More detailed schematic. Primary current will be called IP. He is, of course, calling it I naught because he is not interested in the situation when there is a load connected to the secondary winding. When nothing is connected to the secondary, I told you already, some current in the primary would still be there. That is what he is calling I naught, I suppose. Anyway, the point is that primary winding parameters are voltage and current, and these are AC voltages and AC currents. So there will be a phase shift also between them, and cause of that phase shift is the power factor of the primary winding. VP, IP, maybe he made a mistake in writing the symbol. It should be IP, I think, in general. I naught means no load input primary current. So VP, IP will be the symbols for primary voltage and primary current. In many books, you will find V1, I1, which is also okay. The number of turns in the primary winding will be called NP. In many books, they call it N1, which is fine. On the secondary side, the voltage will be called Vs, the current will be called Is. No, I think he's right. He's not connecting a load. That's why he's calling primary current as I naught, which is fine. Okay. Number of turns in the secondary would be given the notation Ns, or in some books N2. Flux is something we will be dealing with. It will be denoted by phi or phi, whatever, phi m or phi g, whatever. That's our choice. The applied voltage to the primary and the actual voltage appearing across the input of the primary windings connected to the material, the magnetic material, wound around the magnetic material, there will be a bit of difference between the two because of losses in the primary windings wires. That is why the symbol is EP for the actual voltage that is being inputted versus what is actually coming in from the supply. On the secondary side also, the actual EMF will ES, and then the voltage appearing will be slightly different because of losses in the secondary winding. There is an equivalent circuit, we will go through it later, which captures this reality. Okay, same diagram amplified. Yeah, flux is denoted by phi, which is good actually. Obviously, last time I told you, and let me repeat myself, if primary voltage is 220 volt RMS, by default, all voltage and current values will be RMS value. Okay. So primary voltage, if it is 220 volt and secondary voltage is 110 volt, then the ratio of primary turns to secondary turns will be 2. Vp divided by Vs equal to Np divided by Ns approximately. And currents follow the opposite law. IP upon Is is IP upon Is is Ns upon Np. We will prove all this later. He has actually proven it, but let me not go into the proofs today. Ideal transformer, core is the magnetic material. It should be made with high permeability so that lesser amount of voltage will produce sufficient flux. Leakage flux is 0. That means all the flux that is being generated in the core is being utilized for inducing EMF in the secondary winding. No leakage to air and nearby objects. In practice, it is never true 100%, but we try our best. Resistance of primary and secondary winding, I told you, there it is not zero, but we assume that it is low enough. Magnetic material that you are using in the core also has its own imperfections. There's an effect called hysteresis, which means when the applied voltage is going up for half of the cycle, and when it is coming down to negative values for the remaining half of the cycle, the behavior will be different. Eddy currents are local currents set up in the core itself. They also take power away. All this adds to inefficiency. Output power divided by input power should be the definition for efficiency. You try your best to make the efficiency as close as possible to 100%. But these losses will not allow you to do that perfectly. Yeah, this is the formula for an ideal transformer. EP and VP will be same. In an ideal case, ES and VS will be same. And VP divided by VS will be IS divided by IP and will be equal to NP divided by NS. NP divided by NS is normally given the symbol small a, turns ratio. Okay. We will prove this equation later. Let me not bother you today about this. Yeah, this phase shift, etc. We will talk about it later. Okay. Construction. One thing which is critical is the magnetic part, the core, on which you wrap the windings, insulated, of course. Windings themselves are also important. They will get hot, especially in large transformers. You got to cool them down. Oil is used. Oil tanks are used, in which the entire assembly is submerged for large transformers. For small transformers, air cooling is enough, I think, most of the time. Insulation, to make sure that conductors don't short circuit with each other, also plays an important role in construction. Magnetic circuit, it provides the path to the flow of the magnetic flux. The iron core, it is made of iron or some laminated silicon steel. So we call it iron core or magnetic core. Instead of making it solid assembly, we make it out of wafers, especially again in large transformers. Thin wafers are cut. You can see the picture on the right hand side. And then they are bolted together most of the time. That reduces the losses, especially eddy current loss. Okay. There are two types of constructions, core type and shell type. I'll show you the pictures in a minute or two. Yeah, here they are. In core type construction, the windings are wound on the left and right limb of the core. And in the shell type, they are actually wound on the middle limb, both of them. On the left hand side, the construction has got windings visible from outside. In the middle construction, windings are not visible from outside. Nobody can touch them. So it is probably little safer to use the second construction. But again, the construction on the left, the core type is also commonly used. Shell type is better from protection point of view. Okay. When large currents are flowing through the transformer, you don't want anyone to touch it under unsupervised conditions. So these are practical details in terms of implementing the basic theory. Insulators are paper bakelite or press board, cheap enough, I suppose. Double cotton, single cotton with layer of enamel can also be used. It all depends on how much you are paying for the transformer. If you pay a lot of money, you get better quality. Then things are better, obviously. It will last for a long time. The windings are normally made of copper. Aluminum is not used because cost is not such a major issue. In transmission lines, we use aluminum because you have kilometers and kilometers of lines. In transformers, the length of the wire is not that large after all. So you can go for copper and reduce losses. Copper has better conductivity, better electrical conductivity. Actually, it has better thermal conductivity also, coming to that. But right now, I'm not interested in thermal conductivity. Tank, which submerges the entire assembly, and the oil is there. Oil has to be changed periodically because it gets contaminated and whatever with time. Regular maintenance requires that oil should be changed or at least inspected for sure. Tanks are fabricated from welded sheet steel. Practical details. Waterproof gaskets used at joints so that when it rains, water doesn't get into the transformer. Lot of accessories are there. You may not be interested in everything right now, but keep it for your own reference. Losses. Two primary losses are iron losses, which are due to the magnetic core itself, and copper losses, which are due to the winding. Friction losses are not there because there is no rotating part. Iron losses are divided into two main categories: hysteresis loss and eddy current loss. Copper loss is I square R, simple, Ohm's law. For primary winding, it would be IP square RP, where RP is the resistance of the primary winding. For secondary winding, it would be S square RS, where I represents magnitude in RMS value. Efficiency is, of course, output power divided by input power. And input power minus total losses is output power. It's common sense, right? In any machine. Total losses, we'll go through mathematics later. Appreciate the bigger picture today. Total losses means iron losses and copper losses. One thing that we will have to remember that if the load is changing on the secondary side, current will change. That does not affect the iron losses very much. Iron losses are more or less constant with the load current, I mean. But copper losses significantly change. This factor has to be kept in mind when making efficiency calculations. This we will derive later, condition for maximum efficiency. Besides power efficiency, another efficiency is energy efficiency. The load of the transformer changes all the time. So it is probably a better idea to measure total energy output over a 24-hour period versus total energy input over the same period. And compare the two, take the ratio of the two to figure out all-day efficiency. Here is energy output divided by energy input over a given period of time, which is normally 24 hours, all day. This efficiency, all-day efficiency, may not be equal to power efficiency. which is output power upon input power. We'll make calculations in subsequent lectures about all this. Okay. Now the second PPT, yeah, I think this is my own. A lot of repetition is there, I realize, but let's quickly go through it. The basic idea is this. Okay. This is a pictorial diagram of a small transformer. In your lab, in your mechanical engineering labs, there are transformers. Try to have a look. Of course, right now you cannot, I know that. But one day when you come back, you should get a feel for transformers look. AC can be easily generated using rotational mechanical energy as input. We'll see all that after the midterm exam. AC voltage can be transformed into higher or lower values. That's where transformer gets into the game. The voltage transformer can be thought of as an electrical component rather than an electronic component. Electronic components usually have lower voltages and lower currents, and they use semiconductor devices. Electrical components normally do not use semiconductor devices. There are exceptions to that, of course. And generally, voltages and currents are much higher. That is a subtle distinction. But even in electronics world, transformers are used all the time. They are small, of course. They don't carry large power, but they are there. Okay. Voltage transformer is a stationary electromagnetic passive device. Passive means it does not need any DC input. Whatever is coming in is enough. Whatever energy is coming from the AC input is enough. That works on Faraday's law of induction. Okay, fine. Transmission of electric power over long distances is more economical if higher voltages are used. Hence the need for step up, because generation is not at very high voltage. So you need to step up the voltage using transformers before feeding it to the transmission lines. At the receiving end, the opposite has to happen. Very high voltages are coming in. Customer doesn't need that high voltage. So you got to step down the voltage. So step up transformer on the generator side, step down transformer on the substation side. By the way, installation of transformers is also a major issue. How it is bolted, where it is bolted, and so on. It is all part of the game, Theory is simple, okay? We have been through it several times. Important thing is, the coils are not in electrical contact with each other. Instead, they are wrapped together around a common closed magnetic iron circuit called core. The soft iron material that is used is not solid in the core, but made up of individual laminations. I've shown that already in the previous PPT. Okay. So a lot of these things are already told to you. Turns ratio is primary winding, number of turns in the primary winding divided by number of turns in the secondary. Nameplate of the transformer, very important to talk about. It tells you recommended primary and secondary voltages of operation. It tells you frequency also normally. Yeah, it is written here. It tells you kVA rating. It does not tell you power factor because that depends on the load. That depends on how you are using the transformer. So apparent power S, magnitude of complex power, is specified. You always multiply that by power factor cos phi to get the actual power. Okay. Reactive power is there. If power factor is high, then reactive power will be small. That is the entire thing that you should keep in mind. We try to keep power factor as high as possible. It can never be 1, which is the highest possible in theory, but we try to make it at least 0.8, 0.85, and so on for most of the operating loads. Power factor is never mentioned on the nameplate for a good reason. In the data sheet for the transformer, you will see lot more, many things, but let's not get into all that right now. Okay, again, schematic. Let's go through it carefully. Yeah, nothing new here. VP, IP, VSIS, NPNS. Fair enough. We know all this. Let's move forward. Theory, again, it's a reminder. Step down means NS is smaller than NP. We have 1000 volt coming in with 2 ampere going in, 50 turns on the primary. So on the secondary side, you will get 1000 divided by the ratio of 50 and 10. 10 is the number of turns in the secondary winding. So small a is 5. So secondary voltage will be 1000 divided by 5, which is 200 volts. Secondary current, however, will be multiplied by small a compared to primary current. So you'll get 10 amperes. The wattage will be the same. Assuming that power factor is 1, ideal case, 1000 multiplied by 2 is same as 200 multiplied by 10. Conservation of energy applies. Output energy or output power cannot be more than input power. That's for sure. It's a passive device. It's not an amplifier where extra energy is being inputted. So output power can never be more than input power, no matter what. Here losses are ignored, so output power is equal to input power. That is a hypothetical case, but it's good to go through it for illustration purposes. The last statement, the actual value of NP is determined by several factors like how much magnetic flux is generated in the core of the transformer, how much primary voltage is the transformer designed for, what is the intended frequency of operation, etc. We'll come to the equations later, okay? So just be aware that it is NP determination is done by several factors. And once NP is determined, NS also has to be determined by using the voltage transformation ratio that you want. And also current carrying capacity plays a very important role in the selection of the wire for primary and secondary windings. If the current expected in the primary is large, then obviously you are going to use thicker wires. And same thing in the secondary also. Okay. So thicker wires for higher currents, thinner wires for lower currents. Complex load is something we are going to deal with later, but I told you power factor will get into the picture for sure. This is something I've been telling you again and again. Impedance is R plus JX, where R is the resistance, X is the reactance. You know all this. If it's positive X, then it's an inductive load. If it is negative X, then it is a capacitive. You may want to keep this slide as a reference for future. You know the formula for reactance of a capacitor. It is 1 divided by 2 pi FC. It is repeated here for reference purposes. For inductance, the reactance is 2 pi FL. You know that. Okay, so let's move forward. In a purely resistive load, power factor is 1. Phi is 0. Okay. Leading power factor and lagging power factor, you should remember these words. Leading power factor means the current is leading the voltage. Lagging power factor means current is lagging the voltage. The phase shift between voltage and current matters. Okay, when we do numerical examples, hopefully this will be even more clear. Power factor value is not enough. You should always say whether it is leading power factor or lagging power factor. Now, one simple problem, solution is also given. A transformer on a utility pole operates at VP, primary input voltage, VP equal to 8.5 kilovolt on the primary side, and supplies electrical energy to a number of nearby houses at secondary voltage Vs equal to 120 volt, both quantities being RMS values. Assume an ideal step-down transformer, a purely resistive load, that means power factor is 1. What is the turns ratio? It is simple, 8.5 multiplied by 1000 divided by 120. Okay, whatever be the answer. Yeah, 8500 divided by 120, which is approximately 71. So turns ratio will be around 71. The average rate of energy consumption in the houses served by the transformer. The average rate of energy consumption in the houses served by the transformer is 78 kilowatt. That is power actually. Rate of energy consumption is power. 78 kilowatt power is being consumed. How much current will be there in primary and secondary? So what you do is, in the primary, the total power is 78,000 watts and power factor is 1. Power is V into I, right? VRMS into IRMS into cos phi, and cos phi is 1. And VRMS in the primary is 8.5 kilovolts. So you take 78,000 kilowatt, divide it by 8,500, you should get the primary current. Yeah, this is theory. $78,000 equal to VPIP. As simple as that. This gives you IP equal to 9.176 amp. Similarly, 78,000 is also equal to VSIS, and VS is 120 volts. So IS turns out to be 650 amperes. Okay. What is the resistive load in the secondary circuit? Simply do Vs divided by Is. Vs divided by Is. So the load is 0.18 ohm approximately in the secondary winding. RP can also be figured out because Vp divided by Ip has to be a resistance. That gives you the primary resistance of the primary winding. It says about 926 ohms. Okay. You can double check your calculation that the value of IP divided by IS should be same as value of Vs divided by Vp, and turns ratio gets into the game. Small a should be Is upon Ip, as simple as that. Double check your calculations, making sure that Is divided by Ip is approximately 71. Okay, this you can forget right now. I'll prove this someday that RS and RP are related through A as well. Now, construction, step down versus step up, that's one way of classifying transformers. Single phase versus three phase. Yeah, it's a very important thing that I forgot to tell you about. Transformers can be three phase also. For each phase, there will be one primary, one secondary. So there will be three primary windings and three secondary windings. Wound generally on the same core, but if necessary, separate cores can also be there. It all depends, you know. So one way to look at transformers is step down versus step up. The other way is single phase versus three phase. And the third method is what we have already seen, shell type versus core type. In addition, the transformers can also be classified based on how they are going to be utilized. Power transformers, where your primary concern is the transformers are handling high powers. Distribution transformers, which are used in communities to distribute voltage to public and to industry. Power requirements are lower. Instrument transformers are the ones that I have been telling you about. In virtually every equipment you see, there are transformers inside. They have different demands. Powers are generally not high. In many cases, you are focusing on transforming current rather than voltage. That kind of transformer is called current transformer. And the other one, of course, is known as voltage transformer or potential transformer. Cooling technique can be another way to classify transformers. Is it air filled cooling, self cooled, I mean, or is it oil filled along with water pipes running around the tank, which can also be necessary when thermal issues are serious. Air blast, that means you put the transformer under a fan, that's it. And dry type means you do nothing, just leave it to the atmosphere all the time, which can also be okay for small transformers. So depending on the cooling technique, you can classify transformers as well. Okay, shell type versus core type. I showed you this diagram in the previous PPT also. In core type, the windings are visible from outside. In shell type, they are not. The picture is taken from somewhere. The reference is shown here. Another way of saying the same thing. Here we are showing a 2D cross section. In the previous case, we were showing a 3D pictorial. Some description. By the way, the core is also sometimes known as former, Former. It allows the coils to be formed in a particular way. Lot of practical detail, insulation, etc., etc. Again, another pictorial description. Now, this equation I am going to derive later. Losses, I have already told you about. Iron losses and copper losses are the main contributors. No friction losses here. Windage loss is also not there. Effect of wind or on rotating parts. That is called windage, I believe. Core losses are of two types. Don't worry about equations. We'll go through all of that later. But remember the names, eddy current loss and hysteresis loss. Eddy currents are local currents circulating within the core itself. Hysteresis means behavior of the core being different during the positive half cycle and negative half cycle. Or when flux is increasing versus when flux is decreasing, the behavior is different. that leads to losses. Laminations are used, as I told you already, to reduce the eddy current loss. Also, the weight goes down a little bit. They are easier to construct also, easier to maintain also. Copper loss, it is determined by using the famous formula IP square RP for primary winding and IS square RS for the secondary winding, where IP and IS are RMS values of primary and secondary currents. Efficiency, I've told you already, is output power divided by input power, and input power minus lost power is the output power. Okay. All day efficiency, I've already told you. Last thing that you should know about transformers day-to-day operation is something called voltage regulation. When you are connecting nothing to the transformer secondary, how much voltage you are measuring versus when you are connecting full load, when voltage will go down normally. We are talking magnitude of voltage here. Don't worry about phase. So no load secondary voltage magnitude minus full load secondary voltage magnitude divided by full load secondary voltage magnitude, and the entire thing multiplied by 100 is the voltage regulation. Ideally, regulation should be 0%. This is percent value, okay? In practice, no load voltage will be generally higher than full load voltage. So you may see 5 to 10% regulation. So we put a practical limit on acceptable voltage regulation. 5 to 10% generally is acceptable. This I am going to talk about later. Thinner wires for smaller currents and thicker wires for large currents. We'll be going. There are two ways. By the way, wires are not available in market in any arbitrary diameter size. Okay. Standard diameters are available and they are classified based on a system called American wire gauge system or standard wire gauge system. Both are okay. Americans use AWG system, British use SWG. I think in India we are using SWG.